Hey, real quick, I'm gonna FaceTime you and I've gotta share something super cool that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Today, we're gonna be highlighting some of my favorite creators who I think are really starting to put their stamp on the custom sneakers scene. First up, we have a fellow Chicago native, Oscar, better known as Canary Kid, who recently dropped one of the coolest collabs you'll ever see between artists. Him and Stella did this entire pack of New Balance sneakers that are based around the Crayons set. And what I love most about this is just how thorough they went with their presentation for this project. So they found an old school classroom style desk, they found one of those backdrops we would have used for school photos, they made these life-size crayons with some of their own branding, and the presentation for everything is truly top-notch stuff. And that's what you're always going to get when you check out some of Oscar's other work. He did this Riddler-themed pair of dunks a while ago when the Batman movie came out. He found a costume that looks just like the one used in the movie, and these photos really capture that grungy essence of Gotham. You also might have seen some of his Chucky work before, as he's done quite a few different variations of it on dunks and Air Forces, and as you can see, this is somebody who really knows how to nail a given theme. Next up, we have Malcolm Garrett. Malcolm is unfortunately somebody I haven't had the pleasure of speaking with too much in the past, but you can still call Malcolm the colorway king in my opinion. All of his work looks better than coming right out of the factory. Anytime his photos pop up on my timeline, it's always a pleasure to see, and he's also somebody who really puts a ton of time into the presentation, and truly some of the photos look like they could come straight from Nike or Jordan releases themselves. I mean, the stuff that he's doing with not only his shoes, but the way that he designs clothes as well is really inspiring stuff, so love to follow Malcolm's work really closely. Alright, next up we have Cassie Customs, and Cassie is somebody that I recently discovered in the last 6 months or so, I believe. One day I was casually scrolling on Instagram, and this pair of art history themed Air Force Ones stopped me dead in my tracks. I want to say Angelus reposted her, and if you take a look at the detail packed into this shoe, where you have 10 of the most famous paintings of all time on one pair of shoes, there's truly nothing like this. She says that these took her over 220 hours to complete for a college project. In an art history class, she did an entire YouTube video on them. Make sure you go and check that out. But just big picture, the way that she designed these, leaving the toe box and quarter panel completely blank so that these separate paintings could have a little bit of room to breathe and still be completely legible. Great planning on the shoe itself, but just the amount of detail that you have to pack in to a painting like the Last Supper to fit on a tiny Nike swoosh on an Air Force One. Wow, this is one of those pairs that is truly game-changing in my opinion, and I am really looking forward to seeing what else she does next. Alright, next up we have Shoes by Stella, and Stella is an incredible artist based out of the UK who is really starting to do something different with these sneaker dioramas. And the first one that I saw from her was a pair of Jordan 1s that were meant to look like an abandoned building, and they even have a working mini street lamp attached to them. And what I love about these is she's always making these process videos where people get to see this entire art piece get made, and she's constantly ripping into things, cutting holes in things, ripping things off, and when people see that happen to their beloved shoes, naturally they're gonna want to engage with it. So that's genius marketing by her. But a recent pair that she did almost knocked me out of my chair when I saw them. These Wolf of Wall Street dunks are one of the best custom sneakers. You know what? These belong in the Custom Sneaker Hall of Fame if there ever was one. And I love that the two shoes represent different parts of the story. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, by the way. So one of the shoes represents Jordan's rise, where you have the pool party scene, you have money floating all over the place, she put a pool on the toe box. On the outside, you have all of these portraits that capture the scene when Jordan makes his first sale, reels them in, love that one. And then on the other shoe, you have the start of Jordan's demise. So you have the scene where Donnie hands him the lemons, and then you... She took out the tongue and put in stairs when he's crawling down. This, I mean, there's just, who's doing this? Who's doing stuff like this? This is just, There's not words for this type of work. Like I said, this is the type of stuff that pretty much belongs in a museum in my opinion. You just never know what you're gonna see next with Stella's work, and I think that this is somebody who's not just treating a shoe like a blank canvas for her artwork. This is somebody treating a shoe like a foundation for an incredible art piece to be made. Alright, here we have Brennan, better known as Bison, and this is somebody who first and foremost is just an absolutely incredible painter. He doesn't use any airbrush, any stenciling, and he's just a straight up savage with the paintbrush. This is the type of guy who was probably a cheat code in art class back in the day. All of his portrait and character work and his ability to capture any scene is truly astounding stuff. But one thing that makes Brennan different is his ability to paint these micro detail paintings on these incredibly tricky to paint surfaces. So years back when everybody was painting Yeezy V2s, he would take this prime knit material and paint all of these incredibly tiny characters right along that Yeezy stripe. And if you're familiar with working on these at all, you know that each of these characters is probably about the size of a quarter. So I'm just blown away by his skill set to paint things that detailed, that small. Alright, now we have Andrew, better known as AnduC, and I love how all of his work has this really cool vintage feel, which totally makes sense, as I believe he got his start within the whole genre of aging sneakers, and then transitioned into doing some more custom work. And he's done some really cool theme and character work over the last couple years, where everybody's wanted to go in one direction and paint larger characters on the shoe, paint entire scenes. He's gone the entire other direction, where he's just incorporating different elements and colors from the character theme and doing that on the shoes. And I just want to pause to say how much I love that about the custom sneaker scene in general right now, that there's room for everybody. We could take a character like Goku, for example, and there's going to be artists and fans who want to see an entire Goku portrait on the shoes, a scene from the show, but there's also going to be fans and artists that want a much more simplified version, and that's what Andrew's able to do. You'll notice tons of great use of cell shading throughout a lot of his work, and what these projects always really remind me of, if any of these characters were to come down to earth and had to wear a pair of shoes, I think that these designs and styles in general are what they would end up wearing, so I'm a huge fan of his work. Alright, next up we have Ecentric Art, and Elam is somebody that I've been following since I first got started. He's been doing this for over 20 years now, which is amazing to see. And one thing that I've always loved about his work is his ability to put his own stamp on things. You can tell when it's a pair done by him, and you can bet he's always going to play with some intricate patterns, play with different lines, different shapes, and really make the theme his own. I know he's a huge fan of comic books and wrestling, so he does a ton of work with those types of themes, and it's always really great to see when those are done by fans, for fans, because you know they're putting their heart into it. Alright, and last up we have Shawn the Don. Shawn is a killer artist out of Seattle with one of the most diverse skill sets you'll ever come across. If you want portraits, Shawn's got you. If you want recon work, Shawn's got you. If you want clean colorways, Shawn's got you. If you want a pair of cleats that looks like an old school Jordan PE, Shawn's got you. So I have just a massive amount of respect for Shawn's ability to do anything that comes his way, and I'm always really looking forward to see what he does next. So I highly recommend you go and check out all of these amazing artists that we featured today. We'll have them all linked down in the description to make it really easy for you to find them, and there's no way that you won't be inspired after checking out some of these guys, as I know they're constantly inspiring me and making me want to take on new challenges. Speaking of challenges, if you want to check out a previous horror theme challenge that we did with some of the craziest horror theme shoes you'll ever come across, make sure you check out this video next. Alright guys, everybody get out there and just create.